So for some reason, one stream is not working. So let's go ahead and figure out if this is going to work. All right, so we'll just record on Zoom and then we'll throw it on one stream afterwards to go live. So today we're looking at a deal and it's not going to stop my habit of analyzing a deal every single day. So we'll keep on going. So today we got a deal in 35204. This is in Birmingham, Alabama. You can see that this property is relatively turnkey, new kitchen, everything. Floor looks great. Doesn't look like you really need to do much renovation at all. So let's go ahead and figure out how do we turn this deal into a deal, right? I know right now when I look at $186,000 listing price, I already know that this property won't work if I bought it as is using traditional investment loans, such as a debt service coverage ratio loan, which is the DSCR loan, using 25% down, assuming a roughly 8% interest rate. Because we've analyzed enough deals now in this market to quickly understand my my rents are probably between 1,200 and 1,400. And if I can't get a certain price, which is usually around sub 100 grand for a turnkey property, then it probably doesn't work, right? So you might have to pursue a different strategy here. Now, one strategy is using creative finance. Obviously, this is not investment advice. I'm not soliciting any investments on this call, right? Just showing you all the work to take emotion out of the deal and come up with a set of terms that work. So for today, let's look at this deal. It's listed for 186,900. I'm gonna leave my rehabber at 3,500 bucks. Again, you can look at the live that we did yesterday as we went through exactly how did we analyze every single deal and estimated a rehab. But since it's a relative turnkey, setting aside 3,500 bucks is probably more than enough just in case there's any issues that you cannot see from just the photos. All right, so I'm gonna get some numbers here. My home insurance number, according to Redfin, is 145. So I'm gonna go to B29 equals 145. I'm gonna multiply it by 1.2 because I'm increasing the insurance estimate by 20% because usually an investment property is considered more risky when it comes to these investment properties, right? Usually this estimate is for a prime residence. And when you turn to investment property, typically you get charged more for your insurance premium. Okay. So now my property tax is 61 bucks. So I'm going to put that right here. Obviously, if you buy a property, make sure you check the assessor records to figure out what's going on. Okay. 35 bucks. Now I need to find my rents. In order to find my rents, I'm going to Google one thing. I'm going to Google first the HUD FMR. When you Google HUD FMR, you can come down here, click on the access to small area FMRs. FMR stands for fair market rent. Okay. Then you look up FY 2024 FMRs, click on Alabama, click on Jefferson County. And now all of a sudden, you're going to have by bedroom count, by zip code, what the rent ceiling is. And you're going to see right here that the rent ceiling for 35204, which is the zip code there, is 1,350 for a 4-bed and 1,240 for a 3-bed. 35204, 35204. Okay, just write down these numbers because my partners already know how I analyze deals. And this is the quickest way for me to organize everything so that they don't have to do their research themselves. Now, then I'm going to go to affordablehousing.com, right? I'm going to go to owner section. I'm going to go to my market rent estimator, and I'm going to plug in the address, plug in my bank account. And the most important number I care about here is this number here. It says that for 25 units within a 1.87 mile radius, the average rent is $1,291. 1,291. The other one's 1,570. Just right now, only for 1,330. Okay. That's within a 1.8, 1.9 mile radius. Okay. So when you compare 1,350 to 1,291, you're supposed to use the lower of the two, right? Because this 1,350 also includes utilities. But there's also a test. It's called the rent reasonableness test. And I'm pull up this guide for you right here. This is the Housing Choice Voucher Program Guidebook, right? Housing Choice Voucher is what was formerly known as Section 8 voucher, but it's now called Housing Choice Voucher. Now, when you go to Section 2.2, there's a test. It's called the Rent Reasonableness Test. It says that in conducting rent reasonableness, the PHA, or the Public Housing Authority, must determine whether the rent to the owner is a reasonable rent in comparison to rent for other comparable unassisted units. So, in determining comparability, the PHA, or the Public Housing Authority, must consider the following factors where appropriate and practical. So obviously size, unit type matters. You got to compare single family homes against single family homes. Size of the unit probably matters, but hey, at some point there's also diminishing returns, right? Because a 2,000 square foot home might only be able to charge the same rent as a 2,500 square feet home. It just depends on the market. So just be wise, make sure you're comparable, comparing apples to apples. But in this scenario, that's why we're using 1290 as our rent assumption for this property. Okay. Got my taxes and insurance, and I got 10% for my maintenance, which means that I'm setting aside 10% of my rents every single month for expected repairs in the future, such as I know my roof is going to get replaced at some point, right? I know my HVAC is going to break. I literally just spent 5 grand on repairs to our HVAC conditioners. And if you didn't set aside $100 every single month, right? And you also get a bill for 5 grand, that means for 50 months, $100 each month, you might have thought you were making an extra $100 a month. And in reality, that's not the case. So you got to be really, really wise with your maintenance and make sure you're setting aside money every single month so that you don't overestimate your profitability because you are underestimating your expenses. You don't want to be that person in 5 years from now and thinking you made all this money, all of a sudden get a big expense and then realize you actually didn't make any money. So don't be that person. At 10% set aside for property management, I got 5% set aside for vacancy. So let's plug in our conventional numbers here, right? If I bought this property for 25% down, so my down payment is going to equals to my B4, my asking price, right? Times my down payment percentage in F19 of 25%, I will put 46 grand down on this property. Okay. Now, if I bought this property, right, assuming let's see 8.25%, let's do 8% interest because interest rate went down a lot today because of the stock market crashing. Now, all of a sudden, you will be negative, right? Negative $296 a month. If you rent this property out as a 4 bedroom for $1,290, you'd be negative $296 a month. Your cash and cash return will be negative 6.5%, assuming you bought this property at 186,900 with a estimated rehab of $3,500. Okay. Now, how do we turn this into a deal? Right? What is one thing you can do? Well, watch what happens as I lower my asking price to a number that will make this into a 10%, just using 10% as a number right now as a benchmark. If I bought this property for 100 grand, now this is a 7% return, right? If I bought this property for 95 grand, now this is the 8.5, 92 grand, 90 grand. Now you're at 10%, right? So this would be a deal if I can rent it out as a 4 bedroom for $1,290 because I would cash for $237 a month. And now this is a 10.1% return on my money. And this is assuming a $90,000 purchase price, right? Now, this seller probably isn't going to be willing to sell your property for 90 grand, which is half of what they listed for. So how else can you make this a deal, right? If my goal is 10%, right? And I'm not saying everybody has to have a 10% cash and cash return. There are literally people in the world where they just want to break even, and that's all they care about. So if I turn this into a 0% interest rate, right? Meaning, let's go back to the price that they wanted. So 186,900. So if I can give the seller the price that they're looking for, as long as I can get the terms that work for me, what might that look like? Well, what if I went from 8%, right, to 0%? Well, that still doesn't get me to 7.5%, right? Even though it's principal only payments, only gets me to 7.5%. So now I need to pull one more lever. What if I lowered my down payment? What if I'm only 15%? Okay, now this works, right? So if I bought this property for 186,900, my rehab is still the same, right? $3,500, 25% down, 0% interest rate. I can do 15% down, sorry, renting out for $1,290, and now I will cash for $291 a month. And that's a 9.7% return, much closer to 10, right? What's another way I can do it? What if the seller says, hey, I really, really want to get 25% down? Well, what else can we do? What if we made this a 40-year amortization? Okay. So instead of spreading my payments, my principal only payments over 30 years, and now I'm doing 40-year term, 0% interest rate with 25% down. Again, 186,900. Now, you might be asking, well, why might a seller go for that? Well, sometimes people don't hold the properties for that long, right? Sometimes people just sell the property usually after 5, 7, 10 years. People don't really hold properties for that long. So you would be essentially promising your seller, like, hey, if I sell this earlier, you're still guaranteed that price of 187 grand, which is originally what you wanted. If I sell this property in 7 years, right, and they believe that 187 grand is above market, well, now all of a sudden this might make more sense for the seller, right? Even though it's a 40-year amortization, but for you, it's a benefit because you are paying down a principal every single month. There is no interest portion of this loan. So again, I want to go through this exercise because I want to share all the scenarios that might make a deal work for you, right? Taking emotions out of the deal, emotions out of the transaction, what might make it a deal for you, your own risk tolerance. So here's my goal. I hope you guys are able to copy my homework today. Analyze the same deal I analyzed today. This is right on the MLS. Just don't making it up. Using the same spreadsheet. You guys want to copy the spreadsheet, just go to affordablehousing.io, click on the Get Deal Analysis tool, put in your name, your email, your phone number. Promise I won't spam you. I didn't make the spreadsheet from scratch. I took a few of them, combination of them. I modified them, I tweaked them, I combined them. And this allowed me to underwrite deals a lot faster. Okay. So I hope you analyze the same deal. I hope you put it on your own YouTube channel because that's how you create that undeniable track record for yourself that you know what you're doing when the time comes for you to pull a trigger on a deal if it comes across the table and slaps you across the face. All right. All right. I hope you guys have an amazing Monday. And I'll be back again tomorrow for day 300.